Ready to go? Good morning. It is May 26, 2020. We will call the Wright County Board of Commissioners to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome everyone that is here in the room and joining us remotely, including Commissioner Burrell is online. So first order of business is the minutes from 5/19.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the May 19th minutes.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Fetch, seconded by Commissioner DeLyden. Is there any discussion on these minutes? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right. Motion passes 5-0. All right, the agenda for today, were there any changes that need to be made to the agenda?
Yes, I had one item to add regarding the Tactical Training Center furniture quote. If we would want to schedule a meeting to discuss that.
All right. We put that under items for consideration E, or D, and then Corona for E.
We can certainly do that.
All right.
With that, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the one addition. Second.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Potter, seconded by Commissioner DeLyden. Any discussion on that?
Well, just taking a moment to listen to the
Someone online, if you'd like to mute your mic unless you had a question. All right. Hearing nothing else, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right. Motion passes. Approve the agenda with that one addition. Consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve our consent agenda as lengthy as it is. It's the shortest consent agenda I think I've seen this
I know,
year.
I kept looking at it, it's like.
I'll second it.
Right, motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner DeLyden. Any discussion on that? If not, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right. And our 9:02, Alicia O'Hare, timed item, she's,
I don't know, is she in the voice?
Alicia, are you online?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Burrell.
I was going to say, I'm not, I think if Attorney Kreiser is online and I'm here, I think we could probably explain this pretty well too.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm here as well online.
All right. Yeah, we have, it is a resolution, and yeah, I don't know if she was on the agenda, but if you've had a chance to look through it all, and Charlie, you don't have any concerns. I think you've been supportive of this right along, correct?
Yeah. Yes, Madam Chair, and I was talking with Commissioner Potter a little earlier. You know, he asked me if I had any concerns, and I really didn't. The only possible hang-up that we had is our commissioner that's representing the Stearns County on this has been kind of reluctant to put any funds toward the startup money.
Okay.
Even though it's a relatively small amount, but we don't know how it will get voted on at their board. But I guess this is something we're just going to have to deal with later. That's really the only thing I see as a hang-up, and maybe Attorney Kreiser could speak to if he had any other concerns.
And Alicia just did come in, so, okay, go ahead, Attorney Kreiser.
Yeah, Madam Chair, looking at the agreement, it's fairly straightforward. There were a couple things that got taken out during the drafting process that we wish were still in there, but I think it's as good as you can get for a group this big.
Yes.
It is a small contribution that we're looking at annually of about $2,750 per year annually, and that really is just to try to get a fund in there to try to cover any expenses that may come in during grant funding periods, just as a carryover, just to try to keep the the group solvent as it tries to keep the funding going. It's not meant to be used as an expense fund, but just basically as a gap filler while we're waiting for state funds to come in. So I think the contribution is in line. I think the agreement looks good overall for what we could get out of the group, and I'd recommend approval.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
And Commissioner Batch?
so the 2750 is just operating capital then?
Yeah, it's an initial operating capital, just to make sure, like, if, an expense comes due, let's say, here at the end of May, and the grant funding doesn't come until July 1, just to be able to cover that gap of, let's say, 30 or 45 days, so that they can make sure that they're flush.
Thank you. Alicia, we kind of started because Commissioner Burrell and Attorney Kreiser were online, so we just kind of jumped into it.
Yeah, good morning, Madam Chair and the board. Thank you to Commissioner Burrell and to Greg Kreiser for getting us started here. Based on what I'm hearing, there's not a whole lot to add, but it came about because we did lose the Crow and they dissolved, so we wanted to revamp it, and in considering who was going to fully implement the North Fork Crow rather than just, the whole goal is that the North Fork Crow One Watershed One Plan was improving on what we were doing. We want to implement it fully, and that plan coordinator that comes into play with this agreement is really integral into doing that. Somebody that can be devoted to figuring out what the plan dictates and how we can really get it done. So that's all part of it, and that the fund helps secure that position. So, and just a quick note, Soil and Water is responsible for an additional contribution. So the county is one entity and Soil and Water is another. So just to clarify.
I saw those on the list, so. Okay.
Yeah, they're listed separately on purpose, and so just so you think about that. But.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Madam Chair.
Yep. Commissioner DeLiden got in just a second ahead of you. Commissioner DeLiden?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just kind of curious on who's going to be the fiscal agent and operational person.
At this time, Wright Soil and Water will, I believe we're going to contract the program coordinator at this point rather than hiring directly, but we'll contract it to, and we'll be the responsible party for that. I believe will be fiscal agent as well.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Commissioner Burrell, you had a comment?
Madam Chair.
Sorry. I thought it was Charlie, so you're Greg.
Let Attorney Kreiser speak first.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, to the soil and water issue, I think Alicia's correct that that's kind of the intent of the Soil and Water Board, but I think before they can formally say that they're going to take it on, my recommendation is that we see how things go with Stearns County and some of the other counties. If they're really balking at putting in $1,500 or $2,000, it's going to change my opinion on whether or not Soil and Water should take on this fiscal responsibility. Just so the board's aware, I think it's still kind of up in the air, but hopefully Soil and Water goes along with it, but we're also still kind of concerned about how some of our other partners are viewing this small contribution to this organization.
Okay. That's fair. And Commissioner Burrell?
And Madam Chair. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add to this, whatever money we're calling it, the seed money or startup money, the grants that we're receiving, we're allowed to have administrative fees taken out, and it should totally fund these. But as Attorney Kreiser pointed out, that when you first start up, you don't get the money until after the work is done, for the most part with these grants. So we need that seed money to start up. And I want this to be on the record that we had talked initially that the most that this contribution would go for is for 4 years. Right now at our last meeting, we're looking at it could just go for a year or two, but at the most it would be 4 years. So I'm going to be off the board here at the end of this year, and I want it to be on the record that this was the most we ever talked about was this contribution going on was for 4 years. Am I right on that, Attorney Kreiser?
You are correct, Charlie.
All right. Well, thank you for those, adding those comments. Anything else that anyone had questions about, or anything else you wanted to add, Alicia?
I don't think
All
so.
right, well, we have a resolution.
Madam, I'll make a motion to accept the resolution regarding the
I
flood
will
water
second that.
plan.
All right, motion by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Burrell. And this is a resolution, and another roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, resolution passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, there are a lot of entities in this group.
Yes, yes, I'll be sure to provide the county with a fully executed document once we have it.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
it might take a
Appreciate
little-
that.
All right,
Commissioner Burrell?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to pass out a few thanks, but Attorney Kreiser did a lot of work on this, Alicia from Soil and Water, but also Jeff Burns and Luke Johnson out at Soil Water. I mean, it's been a lot of meetings, it's been real time consuming, and I just want to thank everybody for all that they've done
Yeah.
on this, because I think we like Attorney Kreiser said, we ironed out as good a document as we can with such a large group, and I think it was a lot of things going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that it must have been a lot of work, so thank you, everyone. Anyone else have a comment? Thanks for coming in, Alicia.
thank you, have a good day.
You too. All right. Moving on to our items for consideration already. Schedule a committee of the whole for Baker Tilly final presentation. And Administrator Kelly, did you hear from the sheriff, or maybe Captain Hoffman has dates, or?
Yeah, there was a lot of emails back and forth between the parties. So again, this is to receive the final report Baker Tilly had done regarding Sheriff's Office. We were looking at Thursday, the 11th of June at 1 p.m.
All right, yep.
I've confirmed that with Baker Tilly, so that works for them.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to set a committee of the whole at 1 o'clock for the Baker Tilly report.
All right.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Potter. Is there any discussion on this?
Madam Chair, I missed the date.
It is June 11th at 1 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Does that work?
That looks good for me.
Okay. So everyone has it? All right. All right. There's no discussion, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes, so we will meet on the 11th. And next item, schedule committee of the whole for public health notifications and information. There is this,
It's kind of a discussion I had with Commissioner Burrell, and excuse me, he may want to speak to that, but
Madam Chair?
yes, Commissioner Burrell.
Oh, I didn't mean to talk over Lee. He has to yell out louder, so I wouldn't do that. But anyway, no, this is something I asked to get a committee of the whole meeting, and I talked with Sarah Groshus, our public health director, and I think we both have the same kind of concerns as far as getting information that's relevant to our county and getting it out and communicated to the people. I understand we can't give out addresses to somebody that has the COVID-19 or the name, but I do think that we have to be giving out a little more information than just saying there's so many cases in Wright County. I think if there's starting to be an outbreak in a certain area, I think that needs to get communicated to people. And Sarah's concerns, if I might, put words in her mouth, was that she's getting this stuff, the direction from the state, and we just have to find out what we can and can't do. And I want to make sure that we're getting information as much as we can to our citizens. So
Yeah.
that's what I'd like to have the committee of the whole about.
Appreciate that, and Sarah is in the house, if you wanted to add anything, Sarah?
This should work.
Use your outside voice, though.
She's got a good outside voice.
Yeah, so Commissioner Burrell and I spoke. I know that other counties have already had conversations about what can and cannot be released. If you notice, none of us are releasing more than county level data, including Hennepin, which has several cities that have local public health within those municipalities. We have pushed the state to ask, now that we have more cases, to be able to release more granular data, and have not received feedback. I had actually several well, not several, a few emails back and forth between myself and Senator Kiffmeyer, also asking for more information that I'm not allowed, as far as I know, to release. I let Brian know that, asked the son know that I believe Dakota County also, their county attorney reviewed this early on because their commissioners wanted information. I know, Commissioner Burrell, I know you wanted to talk about data information, but I also hoped it would be an opportunity to have some frank discussion about some of the response, maybe opportunities and areas for improvement.
No, I would be fine with that, sir.
All right. So do we have any dates in mind for this?
I do not have a recommended date. I was thinking we're probably obviously into June. I don't know if you wanted to entertain it as a workshop item or have it as a standalone.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
does anybody have anything scheduled for after the board meeting on June 2nd?
I do not.
I am good.
I would think that the sooner the better for this discussion.
I agree.
Okay.
Sarah, does that work for you?
Does that work for you, Charlie?
Yep, that will work, right after the board meeting on the June 2nd.
So essentially, 10:30, we're looking at a
Okay.
10:30 a.m. meeting.
June 2nd.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Potter?
I'll make a motion to set a committee of the whole to discuss public health notification, information, and other related items.
All right, motion made by Commissioner
June
Potter.
2nd at 10:30.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner DeLeyden. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Aye,
All right, motion passes. Thank you. See you then.
Sarah.
All right. Item D, our C, Wright County Economic Development Partnership Loan.
I mentioned this at a previous meeting that the Economic Development Partnership had been working on a loan program to assist businesses with the COVID-19 period. So in your packet is the policy and the application program. Basically, the Economic Development Partnership would be doing the publicity on this, the notification on this, and they'd have a committee that would vet it. Where the county would come in is we'd have the attorneys review the documents and the auditor would assist with the financial end. So I think it's a good program and I'd like to see it move forward. So Dwayne was just looking for kind of a official blessing today.
Okay.
Madam Chair, so moved.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Potter. Is there a
I'll second
second?
that.
Seconded by Commissioner Vetch. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes 5-0. Okay. Now, the Tactical Training Center Furniture Meeting.
Madam Chair, I had
Commissioner
asked Administrator Kelly to put this on. I know there was an email that was sent out, and some wanted to have a committee of the whole regarding it. It was been budgeted. There was discussions on it. And if we need to go into it in depth, which I'm not sure why, I wanted at least for Alan to have answers to questions that this board's going to have.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Vetch?
one of my questions was because when we came into the numbers into the bidding process early on, this was one of the items that we were shading out because the numbers were quite close. So
Right.
now, to say that it's budgeted, I would say it wasn't budgeted in that respect. It was kind of more to the fact that if there was enough savings in other areas, that when we got to this point, if the contingency funds allowed for it to be purchased, then yes. I guess I don't know, maybe Alan has a better idea what our burn rate is on the expenses for this project to say that funds are still there to be able to.
Right, yeah, and my recollection of all those discussions was that, you know, we can bring furniture from other areas and that kind of thing. So it's part of the discussion, but Captain Hoffman?
I do recall those conversations with regards to bringing furniture in and then the cost of purchasing new furniture. We're talking training tables and chairs. I'm not aware of stashes of training tables and chairs. I know we got a bunch of cubicles, stuff we can utilize, but we don't have a cubicle farm at the training center. There are 3 offices. All we want to build out is 3 offices. We need a conference room table. I don't know if we have conference room tables stashed anywhere in the building here, and the training tables. You know, we're not talking a huge amount of money here. I mean, I don't understand where we're getting this furniture from, because I haven't seen it around the county. And if we do have it, we're going to be stealing it from places that need it now or need it in the future. So, I mean, if we're looking at saving a ton of money on furniture, we got a brand new building with what, 300 offices open up this fall compared to 3 offices?
Yeah, I was just surprised at the number, you know, the amount of, that we're talking. I don't know where the expense would be, but Alan, if you have.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner.
I think the cost, I mean, he says it's not a lot of money, but it's $30,000 is roughly, I think it was the dollar amount that I seen in the email for the furniture for just
94.
conference rooms, tables, and that didn't even include the 3 offices. That was just am I correct, Alan, on what we're?
Yeah, good morning, Madam Chair and Board. The total, when you mentioned the budget, there is a specific line item in the budget for furniture, and I get that there's some flexibility depending on the burn and the spend on the project, but there's $90,000 in the budget line item for furniture. I just got the confirmed proposal this morning. The number for the conference room, the 2 training rooms, and all the chairs, the break room, tables, that stuff was 42,000 and change.
Okay.
The offices and the workstation is 22,000.
So it's under the budget.
42,000 plus 22,000.
Right, so it'd be about 64,000 for the whole site. Again, the line item was 90,000. We're gonna have potentially some shelving or some miscellaneous small stuff within that, but certainly well below what was budgeted on this line.
Okay, yeah, I think I misinterpreted I was thinking it was outside of what we had, so.
No, Madam Chair, certainly it's not. It was more of a, here's an email heads up before we
okay.
spend the money, and
Yep.
I understood that's kind of how we wanted to proceed with that, is before there's a large chunk that's a budgeted spend, that I give you a heads up that,
Right.
hey, everybody's still good with it. If we proceed in a different manner, if it's a change order understanding, that's a different process, but if it's a budgeted item, I guess I kind of understood that I'm putting it out there, make sure we're good to go, and then we go ahead with the purchase. So look for guidance, I guess, on how you want to proceed.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, but Commissioner Vetch?
Madam Chair, I mean, I get the conference room and stuff, and we don't have direct things that we could take to do that stuff, and I mean, I'm okay with that, 42,000. The 3 offices, we can find stuff here to outfit them, because nobody's gonna be officing, because when I was told that nobody in the immediate future is officing in them, so I guess it's kind of one of those things that.
We have a lot of cubicles, you're
We
saying.
have a lot of stuff that in this building that, especially, nobody's gonna be directly officing out of it, I guess, from what we were told for at least the immediate future, so.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Potter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As far as the offices go, it's not a cubicle-type setup in these offices in there. And the concern I have with trying to scrounge what's around to that, we'll have more, quote, manpower chasing us down, trying to find this all to match and fit and everything, because I know Bob and the rest of them at the maintenance staff, I mean, for them they stacked a bunch of that stuff to make sure that, okay, this fits with that, but doesn't fit with that, because there's a couple different brands out there. I just think it's gonna be more chaotic than to just go ahead and get it done. And they say it's in the budget, it's under the budget, and they say, I think it's gonna take more time to just do it. And with that, I'd make a motion to approve the purchase of the furniture.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second it for more additional
All
discussion.
right, motion made by Commissioner Potter, seconded by Commissioner Delyden.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. What is our burn rate? Because I do remember the conversation regarding some additional things that needed to be done down there that weren't originally budgeted for, or something that came in at a higher level. So where are we situated with the budget out there as a whole?
Yeah, Madam Chair and Commissioner Delighten, I don't have the number right off the top of my head of exactly where we're at. However, the contingency on the project, we have seen a large credit back because of a couple duplications in scope. So we've actually got a big credit on the construction contingency side. However, we have offsetting kind of owner requested items with regards to the parking and the additional dirt work that was done there and then some drive lane back to the field on the south end. So we're about a wash in contingency, pretty close. On the technology side, we saw the fiber proposal come in significantly, several $100,000 less than was budgeted for it. But the training rooms and the emergency operations center was a little bit more than probably anticipated. So we still have some available funds in the technology line item, I think, that would certainly cover this. Plus the 90,000, we're about 30-ish thousand under on that project as well. So as a whole, we're sitting okay. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I apologize. I don't have the report with me.
Well,
But
that's close.
I wouldn't say that we are overspending by any means. The project should be in line or under.
Okay, good. Captain Hoffman, also to comment?
So we don't forget, we are going to be applying, once we get the final numbers from BKV and RJM, we are going to be applying for reimbursement on anything EOC related for the EOC grant.
Oh, good, yeah.
That's also in the mix.
Madam Chair.
Yep, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we all recall, when we were doing this, we had the fiber strands, we had at the full everything out there because we didn't know what else to go. We just based that number on that, and it came in significantly less. We don't need as many strands out there. And so that number did come in quite a bit less. But then it was the anticipation, and they thought, at least in my mind, that you go with the worst case scenario. What's the worst it could cost? And it comes in better. It's fine. Okay, we thought it was a full strands in there. It wasn't. I mean, we did a few improvements after the fact. Say, okay, let's do this. Let's think about the future, or that gravel going back to where the future.
Right.
That's how. That wasn't in the original one, but that was not a major expense. But it's something that, well, we got the dirt people here. It's going to be a lot cheaper just to have them do it now than have them go away and bring somebody back in later. Plus the berms and everything will match and make it look like it belonged there in the first
Yeah,
place.
it's really shaping up nicely. I haven't been officially back there, but going by, it's looking nice back there.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Batch.
So I guess because I have two kind of moving pieces here, because I'm trying to remember some of the details, because we had the bonded amount for this project and then the actual cost. And the amount that was the actual cost was a little bit more than what the bonded amount was. And that's where some of these pieces that we tried to piece together the pie to make it whole. And that's where my question comes on this project is have we accounted for where any shortfall that the amounts that are beyond the bonded amount to complete this project is? And I believe furniture was part of that discussion. If we need to come up with money because the project was over the bonded amount, that was one of the areas that we were going to forego for a period of time to make the project whole. That's where my question from Bob and you is where's the burn rate from the bonded amount to where we have to find additional capital to build the project out?
The bonded amount and the FBI grant, right?
Yes. That's the only reason where, I mean, I get that we're coming in on budget, but the budget was a totally separate thing from what we actually bonded for in cash on hand. That's where my discussion is. I'd like to know what we have for cash on hand against what the cost of the project is to determine how much play we have, because that FF&E was one of those things that if there wasn't enough, that was something that we were going to try and tweak.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Dryden.
Yeah, one question, two questions. When is it supposed to open? And with what's going on, will there be much use at all this summer for it?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Delighten, we will be substantially completing the project within about 2 weeks. The final inspections on the building were anticipated the first week of June. I think the electrician final permits won't be doing their inspections until that following week. So we'll, after that point, the mid-June, I think the 15th of June-ish, the technology will be going in, and anticipate that it's all wrapped up roughly the end of June. I would just target the 1st of July as the site will be live and active, with the exception of the fiber. There's been some delay with regards to connection to the city service. Our portion that we're pulling the fiber will be completed, but the city portion will not be at that time. We're looking at some alternative options for a DSL connection just to get the site active from a card access and security standpoint. So I would just anticipate the first week of July the site is available for use. As far as usage on the project, I guess Captain Hoffman will have to speak to that.
And Madam Chair, while he works his way up here, because in the meantime right now, the jury assembly tables are totally training tables. They're not holding, in this building, they won't be not holding a jury trial because of the whole
correct.
COVID stuff. So, I mean, I look at like that, you know, we can't use 120, I get, because we're using 120 all the way now till.
So the training center, the training room is the multi-use for the Emergency Operations Center, again. So going back to that funding formula, or the funding of the facility, we can put in reimbursement for those training tables. It seems we will be utilizing that training facility. We have new staff, we have ongoing training that our officers have to, we have to provide them. So we are going to be utilizing the facility. However you guys decide you want to furniture it, for the expenses that we place on this building, the future buildings that you have going on right now, you know, the $40,000 difference, roughly, I think we can find a way of doing that. Whether it's paid through the EOC grant or what, but it'd be unfortunate if we decided to use broken, mixed matched, and whatever type of equipment out of that facility when you spent the amount of money you guys decided to spend on that facility. It's just, you're finishing it off, you finish it off right, or wait till you can.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Delyden?
with motion maker's permission to move this thing along, why don't we just include in our motion that as long as the money is available, meaning that we haven't gone over our bonding, and then including the reimbursements, that they can move forward with it.
Then, Madam Chair, because I guess because the EOC reimbursement rate was somewhere between $125,000 and $250,000. Depends on what you apply into it. We were kind of always, that was kind of a dollar amount that was factored in and being applied for and utilized to the most of its capabilities. I think if you go based on that recommendation, then the answer would be no, you couldn't do it because, I mean, I guess Bob would have to look into where the bonded amount versus Alan, where we're at in total expenses, but based on where I recollect we were substantially short beyond the bond revenues and even the EOC reimbursement. It was still to the tune of about $300,000 in the red, roughly.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Vetcham, I apologize. I thought we were setting a meeting today. I didn't come prepared to speak to the financials, so I would have to pull the reports and get the financials together if that's what you're looking for to make a decision on it. I didn't come prepared today to speak to that.
I guess that as we have more and more discussion, this does look like it should be either added to the next week's meeting when we have the information, or to have a committee of the whole. So if you're comfortable with throwing your motion until we get some more information, Commissioner Potter?
Madam Chair, my question is, what's the time frame? 1 week, is that going to make a difference on getting this furniture in time or not?
I mean, by July, no.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Potter, it isn't going to make a whole lot of difference. A week's time frame, we won't be seeing it till probably the first week of July-ish anyway. It's probably a 4, 5, 6 week lead time. Most of the items are readily available, but then again, it kind of depends on if you move forward with the training room and conference room or the offices, or kind of mix the packages that you select. It's going to be different lead times on each. So if we get it early July, end of June, doesn't make a whole lot of difference really, I guess, from that standpoint.
So with that, Madam Chair, I'll withdraw my motion to approve it and send it to the workshop meeting next Tuesday? Or
Committee of the whole.
Committee of the whole next Tuesday.
Oh, you want, the
you
committee of the
second
whole
one?
after the public health
Yeah, I think so.
discussion?
I think,
Okay,
it shouldn't take too long of discussion once we have the
The
numbers.
Okay.
right.
So I'll make a motion to send it to Committee of the Whole, approximately 11:15 on next Tuesday.
I'll second that. And Madam Chair, I
Yes, Commissioner
just wanted to kind of question this because we are coming into a budget session that's coming here that we have to really watch. I mean, we watch it all the time, but I mean, given
Especially,
the economic climate that we are potentially walking into here, I really want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for any unseen budgetary impacts. So, and every little dollar counts. I mean, I get it, it's only $64,000, but it's $64,000 that if we weren't accounting for it in part of this expenses, because we were expecting, like I said, there's the budget, and then there's the bonded amount. So anything that's not bonded amount, we have to find that funds for it, so.
yeah, correct. All right, so motion made. Oh, Commissioner Burrell?
Oh, I just wanted to weigh in a little bit, kind of dovetail on what Commissioner Vetch was speaking. And also, I think we have to consider that this is not a public-facing building. It's mostly, employees, FBI. I mean, it's behind the scenes. It's not for the public. So if a chair didn't quite match with a table, I'm not sure that would be the end of the world. So that's just my comment. We can talk about that at the next meeting, though.
All right, so Commissioner Deline made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Vetch to send this to June 2nd. Committee of the Whole, any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes 5-0. All right, Corona, COVID-19, future state of county operations.
Just was planning more of an update today, I guess. We've been working on getting the appointments system set up. We now have a link on our main page of the website on the left side in that green tray, if you will. There's now a make an appointment function. Those have been set up for departments that had requested them. The remaining of the departments have contact information listed there. So we should be good to go on that based on the board's direction. Last week we did a lot of work in trying to figure out logistics and other items relative to the License Bureau and getting that set up. So you'll notice on the appointments link, that's not live yet for the DMV, but there's a space provided for that. So we'll be going live with that fairly soon as well. So I think we've got the logistics ironed out for that area. We're still waiting on the supplier to give us a date on the window. But we're looking, it's still going to be that first week of June, towards the end probably, so we should be able to operate with that. You may have known we passed the mask policy last week, and we've had a number of employees stop up at administration to get some masks. So if you would like some, please feel free to stop up.
All right.
Otherwise, I think we're in a pretty good spot, knowing we're planning the open for tomorrow, so.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Vetch?
Mr. Kelly, I've had some people reach out to me. I know that today a number of the state testing facilities have opened, minus Buffalo not included in that. I've had people asking when or if the Buffalo testing facility would be opening. I don't know that Becky or Bob's office has gotten any kind of direction on that. So it's...
The last discussion I had with Becky was either Thursday or Friday last week. She really didn't have any information other than hypothesis that they were really trying to centralize their most busy offices. So she didn't have a timeline if the Buffalo station would be reopening.
So then, to be determined still.
To be determined, yeah.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Deline?
That make an appointment, I know it's on the left-hand side, but is there some way that we need we need to make it obvious for people, and I'm afraid that that's not obvious enough.
Yep.
Is there any way to put it up on the top line? Online payments, I don't know if that's just strictly for just a couple of items right now, or then notify me. I see we have that down by the calendar in a bigger sign up, the citizens alert sign up for notifications. So, I mean, that's kind of there. I mean, this is, hopefully it's just only going to be a temporary type situation. We don't know.
Right.
Since the world is in a different place right now. I just want to make sure that it's as obvious as we can. And maybe we need to take the pictures out and put it there or something. I don't know. Or put it in there as one of the pictures. I don't know. Maybe somebody that kind of knows what it's capable of, or maybe in a larger larger font or something at that point. I don't know.
Right, Matthew?
Madam Chair, we tried to blow it up. I wanted to make it real big, but you can't mess with that block. I tried to change the font, bold it, italicize it, make it 28 point, whatever we could. It's restricted in there. I'd have to look to see if we could put it in the top bar next to the payments or something in there. Or the other option, we could just have a news article. We could have to make an appointment, then a news article right next to it that we just keep pinned to the top that explains what we're doing. That's another option.
And if that can be done, that's fine, but it's got to be the top thing to see.
I tried. We tried to play with that, and it just, the way the formatting, because a lot of these websites are pre-formatted, so the way the formatting was, it doesn't let you play with that block. You can just put it in there. We did bump COVID. Now COVID's at the very top. If you note, that very top block was the COVID block, so we bumped it. But we'll play with it, and I'll see if I can come up with any other recommendations.
Thank you, yeah. You put a lot of work into that. Thank you, Matthew.
And certainly getting the word out is the key point right now. John's working on press releases for both our print media, but also the radio, so we can hit their deadlines prior to next week rolling too, so.
Well, it's not just next week, it's all
going forward, correct.
Too, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so anything we can do to get it out there more obvious, it will be beneficial to all of our departments, I'm afraid.
Yep. All right.
Maybe, next week when everything is all over with. That's what Sarah was telling me anyway.
All right.
Yeah, it's a strange new world.
So, anything else on that? Okay. Advisory Committee, Advisory Board updates.
Oh, Madam Chair,
Oh,
before we move on, does Sarah have anything that she needs to add regarding the COVID-19?
in my Advisory Board update, I was going to talk about the EMS meeting a bit, but, you might want to.
She's our point person
Sure.
for COVID, so.
Yeah, she is.
I think talking about the EMS update would be great. I think a lot of our conversation will be at the Committee of the Whole this week. We're planning on reviewing our operational strategies as we look at a long-term response and what that looks like. I know that we're expecting some updates on funding. There's several pots of money. I shouldn't say several. There are two large pots of money, one that needs to be expended by the end of December, and the other one, which is a longer-term funding that helps us kind of review our systems. We have, I think, 30 months to work through that. That's at the state level, but there'll be some county funds as well. Review our systems and say, what do we need to, in light of what happened, and kind of what are some things we want to do differently. So we're trying to capture some of the, usually when you have an emergency response, for instance, in a tornado or fire or something like that, it's a rather quick period. Maybe you're responding and then going through the recovery in a week or 2 weeks if it's a really bad event. But then you have time while it's still fresh to go over the things that you want to correct. We're trying to capture that as we do things because we're going to be in response mode for a long time. Also trying to also have some, there's some fatigue and some other things that we're concerned about with staff. Trying to focus on what is probably the most important areas for Wright County and the state, which are going to be around hotspots, as Commissioner Burrell mentioned, outbreak, and then the contact tracing and case investigation, what that will look like, as well as working on some high-risk populations like our long-term care facilities. We have an agreement to do 10 contact tracing cases a day with MDH, and they catch the overflow from us. If we have the staffing to be able to expand that. However, we haven't because there's a plan from MDH to move to a different structure. We're starting to get final guidance on what that will look like. That's supposed to begin sometime in early June. So I'm hoping by that June 2nd date, we'll have some additional details for what that structure will look like.
Any other questions about the COVID? Otherwise, I mean, that was a very informative meeting, the EMS meeting with the
Yes.
with the ER doc, and you know the way that they're structuring everything in their yellow room, their yellow corridors, their red rooms, and just basically reminding the emergency responders when they go in, you know, to make sure that they've got their PPE on and they don't rush, you know, like don't rush into situations. I mean, gather your team and make sure that you're protected and go in together and consider airway before compressions. So if they're responding to those kinds of emergencies that they need to get people breathing again or whatever. And so some of those things where, you know, if you're doing the airway as opposed to compressions where people would be I guess, producing any liquids that would be coming out. And they talked about that they're predicting that essentially it's going to probably peak in about July and go, they're predicting also that toward the end of June that all ICU beds will be full. But
The Metro is already struggling. I
Um,
think that's what we heard from that meeting as well.
And they also have had some good results with remdesivir, is that how you say it? In IVs to shorten the hospital stays with patients. So that's been positive. They're getting some plasma from people that have tested positive or have had COVID. And also, what I thought was interesting was that people are showing a low white blood count, you know, as opposed to a high. I mean, I hadn't heard that, but.
I think there's some cardiovascular and circulatory system impacts from
Okay.
the disease that isn't fully understood because they're also seeing a lot of microclots and different things in the lungs.
Right,
and-
yeah, those, what do they call them, glass, whatever, something, but doesn't look good.
So I know that we have asked Dr. Summerdorf to do a similar presentation for our case contact investigators because as they're doing case contact investigations, people share their symptoms and everybody has I shouldn't say everybody, but there is a variety now. As you know, the CDC symptom list has been expanded to include several other symptoms, and not everybody has like all the symptoms on the list. And I think people from initially thought it was very much characterized by a cough, and there, you know, certainly a variety of symptoms.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting presentation, and they said that 80% of people have more mild symptoms and 2% have very severe symptoms. So, and the testing is not 100% foolproof for sure. They can test positive and then negative and positive again. So there's so many unknowns with this. And, you know, speaking to a doctor too, she said, in my 40 years, I've never seen anything like this. It's just different. So
I think that has made our response a little bit difficult. I'm not usually in a position where I don't know what to do or what to tell staff. And I feel like that's been a struggle.
yeah. So, but anyway, we'll just keep, using what is our direction for best practices and so anyway. But
Madam
yes.
Chair, I just want to again offer that if they need that conference room back over there for other important things. We have the old jail again that could be very functional for you guys. I mean, you have each little office with your own restroom, a bed, you know, a place where you can wash your hands regularly,
Yep.
and a center area
Well,
where you can meet.
I was wondering where you were going with that. We're actually not working out of the conference room anymore.
But actually, someone could sit in central control, and they could be in their, in the different individual jail cell blocks, and you could, you know, speak to each other back and forth from central control, so, yeah.
Well, I wonder how the air circulates, but otherwise.
It's pretty good air in there, I think.
I believe Matthew just volunteered to have Greg out in there to help, since he supposedly has some experience with that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
not
not-
sure what kind of experience, but
Yeah. Lots of room for everybody.
just trying to get some use out of it. So where are you guys at now?
Most of us are working remotely.
You are, okay.
Yeah, so, probably a good practice, so. All right.
Probably push that limit as long as we could.
Yeah, but, you know, there's a lot, I mean, there's still a lot going on, but particularly initially, there was a lot to set up and get figured out, and anyway.
I would agree.
All right, other advisory board updates? Ryder?
Yes, Madam Chair. Last Tuesday, met with the library board. Again, Zoom meetings, that's what we're doing now. And we're fortunate, the library board, we've had some pretty good investment results, and we've been pretty good on staying within budget. So for next year, 2021's budget, you will see a slight decrease to Wright County for our statutory or signatory contribution. And we could have gone a little farther, except for we didn't know what to anticipate for 2022, because I think that's the budget year that might have the big impact after all this running in the dark with COVID thing gets settled. So we took some money out of a CD there. We're still about 7 months of reserve, and the idea with the board is to get us down to 5.5 months. So we figured take a more cautious approach and take one off this year, reducing that signatory line just slightly, and then see how it plays out, maybe do the same thing next year. We probably have enough to do 2 more years of this to keep that line where it's at. So there's a little savings coming down the pike there, because like everybody else, we don't know where this is heading or what's the future of this is. And the libraries are planning on reopening, and all different have a little different schedule to that, so consult your local library to find out what their time schedule is, because it's not uniform across the board, because each one's a different situation. We tried going with the bigger libraries first and seeing what's going on, but it's not a one-size-fits-all type situation.
Yep.
That's what we have for library.
Last week, myself and Commissioner Potter, we had Trailblazer meeting, good meeting, discussed a lot of different topics. One of the big topics is about public transit, and it's your right to ride public transit, and via this COVID thing, and how to deal with people that are looking to get rides to be tested because they're symptomatic, and it puts for a very you don't have the ability to really deny that ride, and so you're trying to find ways that you're not going to put others in harm on the bus as well. So they did search out, and they did find a contracted driver that will facilitate those one-off situations. Luckily, we haven't had many of them, but yet they're possible and have had a few. So it's kind of trying to figure out a way to facilitate that. So that was a great discussion. The state is fitting the bill on that cost. So right now, because we are down extraordinary amounts of numbers for our ridership right now, but the state is removing local share for operating costs. So the only local share that we would have at this point is for capital expenses, which are fixed. We already know what those were. So basically till January, February next year, they'll be covering the operating costs, and then we'll be looking forward where we go from here if it goes back to the traditional 80-20, 85-15. As it looks right now, the Sibley and McLeod County are going to tote the line for the ridership share. of the, sorry, 45, 20, 35 local share split. The ridership is more indicating that Wright County is about 52% of the ridership, where 38% for McLeod and 10% Sibley County. But right now we're going into kind of uncharted times, so they're willing to just tote the line since we didn't have any kind of local share for this next year. So we'll reevaluate it next year in terms of the local share split.
Thank you.
Building.
Oh, and yeah, in the building, the timeline, it's kind of gotten pushed back. I remember off the top of my head, Michael, what was the date that he was thinking about having it completed? It was going to be more like October, I thought.
October, yeah.
Okay.
Have they started yet?
No.
No, they're still in the drawing phase and getting
Yeah.
bids.
Madam Chair, Board had some discussions with Gary and Brian Osselson last week about the bidding process. The building's kind of unique and it has to work together and build in and make sense. So there was some advice that they were looking for from the county. So I brought Osselson in. We had a good discussion about that. So I think we have a path moving forward, but that did slow us down a little bit.
Okay. All right.
One on the right.
Good. Anything else, Commissioner
Anything
Batch?
else?
The appreciation for allowing to store the vans.
Oh, yes, they did give us, the Trailblazer Board and Gary and staff thanked us for allowing us to store their new the new buses until they were able to put them back on the road. Those new buses are now back in operations as we were able to sell off the old buses that,
Yes.
as these replacement buses.
Good.
The remaining 4 River Rider buses are gone.
Oh, yeah, there, good point on that, yes, all River Rider buses are off the road now, yes.
Okay.
They get a pretty good dollar amount for all those buses. I mean, one of them that had a bad transmission, they still got like $2,500 for one that has like a bad transmission, and all the other ones they were getting around 4 to 6 for them all.
Nice.
So.
And if I might chime in on that.
Yes, Commissioner
Madam
Potter.
Chair, thank you. With that, the buses, with the River Rider buses, they were a different class, a little cheaper on the front end, but the maintenance on the back end was the killer on these things. And their maintenance logs on those was like, oh my Lord, yet you beware of the high cost of the cheap price. And I think that was the case with those buses. They came in cheap, but they're more maintenance. And they're happy that they're no longer part of the fleet.
Save, 10, 15,000 on the front end, but end up paying 15, 20 on the back end.
Did they trade them in, or did they sell them outright or on a bid?
Gov bids, Doug.
DealGov.
DealGov or
The one that
GovBid.
the county uses?
Whatever DealGov.
DealGov.
Yeah, it's another site, different one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my only other update was I was on another webinar with the Safe Harbor, through Safe Harbor. So that was, yeah, eye-opening also. So, Commissioner Blyden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we did, Commissioner Betts and I continued on with our strategic planning development meetings, and it's coming along. We've added one request from every department, and that's to have
Org chart?
org chart. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't think of that at times. But anyway, so that we all have an idea on how it all works.
I think that's great. Yeah.
And just to make sure, some Administrator Kelly says he has a lot of them, but some of them needed to get updated and stuff. So it'll be nice to have an org chart.
Yes.
And I don't know how we're doing with that. And I think after you get it all done, you were going to forward it to all of us. So look forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was on a meeting on WebEx or something on Friday with Minnesota Counseling of Aging. And I'll let Commissioner Burrell have more discussion on that. Because I believe he was also on that conference call too.
Commissioner Burrell?
Well, I wasn't even going to mention that, but we had Jay Weatherford kind of put that together with the area on aging board for Minnesota, and
It was
and I did want to mention also you talked about Trailblazer a little bit. They're delivering a lot of these home delivered meals, the frozen meals. So I know at Community Action they really appreciate that partnership. But anyway, no, we just talked about the different things. Jay had mentioned that he's trying to work around with any funding shortages. We have the Waverly Cafe right now has used in their PPP loan to keep their employees on hand, and they're preparing now frozen meals. They have a machine that's sealing up the packages, and so it's really a nice partnership. And Jay has just done an amazing job. I think Mark, you'll agree with that. He's just above and beyond. I mean, I don't know when the guy sleeps. So, and then the only other thing I was going to mention was the One Watershed, One Plan, and we kind of talked about that. So, if I missed something, though, Commissioner Delight, let fill in there.
All right.
Yeah, Madam Chair, it was just the conversation with the state level, just to see where funding is and the future, and some of the information on the state, on where the funding goes through to at the state level to each organization regarding the aging. I think there was 6. Charlie, was there 6 or 7 throughout the state?
I think it's 7. Yeah.
7. Okay. And then the other thing, I just want to thank the public for bearing with us as life has been changing here, and that we're trying to do the best we can with these appointments, and I think it's going to work well for everybody. It's just a matter of time until we get used to the new normal, as they're saying. And thank you for our administrator for working his weekends
Yeah.
and evenings.
Yeah. All the time.
And all the department heads and everything they've
Yeah,
been doing, so just want to thank them all.
It's been a lot.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Vetch.
Commissioner Dahlin, did Wright County Community Action decide if they were going to apply for some of those FEMA feeding grants?
They're working with Representative Tom Emmer with his department, and also with Senator Tina Smith, too.
Okay.
So they've been in contact with them, and those FEMA grants are extremely complicated. So they're getting some help from Senator Smith's office and Representative Emmer's office to try and do it. Unfortunately, it's not a simple process, which is, I'm scary that when you have an emergency that you got to jump
Right.
through all these hoops, and I understand that you want to make sure that it goes to the right places, but you would think that you'd be able to streamline some of that.
Great. They should be.
Well, I'm happy to hear that Emmer and Smith's office are helping with that, because I just get really nervous that if Wright County Community Action would get hung on the hook for all the expenses because they didn't do something right, it would be enough to probably cripple the organization, because they could be on the hook for the tunes of 6 figures plus. So
Yeah, for sure. All right, anything else, Commissioner Delight?
Nope.
Okay. And Commissioner Burrell, did you have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
And
You kind of hit my
Commissioner-
topics already. I was going to say Trailblazer strategic planning, and that's we kind of talked about it. So the meetings will continue with strategic planning this week. Yeah,
all right.
We have committee meetings tomorrow.
correct. Yes.
Committee meetings tomorrow, and yep, we have Ways and Means, and you have IT, right, at 11?
Correct.
And we have strategic planning meeting with attorneys, and I believe I have safety committee in the afternoon. So, is there anything else that anyone needs to bring before the board? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 10:04.